What's good, everyone, and welcome to the first official podcast episode of the One Mic NBA's podcast. I'm Yunkel, and I'm here with Smush, and today we're going to be doing our first official NBA mock draft of the 2026 class. Without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to start off here with the number one pick with the Washington Wizards, of course. Smush here is going to be picking all the odd numbers, and I'm going to be picking every even number. All right, start us off.
Okay, so the Washington Wizards with the first overall pick will be selecting AJ DeBonsa. I feel like most Wizards fans are excited for that one.
All right, picking number two, the Utah Jazz. In my opinion, it's closer than a lot of people would think, but I'm still gonna go Darren Peterson here, just because I think when you look at his injury injuries in college basketball, kind of weighed him down a little bit. But I think he could easily be the number one pick if it weren't for his injuries. So you have to go number two.
Completely agree. I feel like most scouts have said the talent was there, and it was just the unfortunate injuries that have kind of knocked him down that number one pick. But I do feel like number two is a great pickup, and he does fit seamlessly into that Jazz lineup. Um, and now number three seems more clear cut than number two. It is definitely Cameron Boozer going to the Grizzlies. I've heard a bunch of people say that if he falls this far, the Grizzlies are not going to let him fall again. And so the Bulls are going to get the last of the bunch.
Yeah, and with number four, it's easily going to be Caleb Wilson. I honestly think Caleb Wilson could potentially go number three when come draft night because I mean he's just so explosive. He has everything a team would want, the athleticism, but the downside is kind of his shooting. So I think it's a toss up between Cameron Boozer and Caleb Wilson for the third overall pick, but whoever falls definitely goes number four.
And number five, I've seen a bunch of speculation. Obviously, we're starting with all of the guards that are going to go here in this area. I've also seen a bunch of stuff that are saying if Clippers could trade back or trade Darius Garland and use this new guard as their new franchise cornerstone. However, I do think they are going to keep Darius Garland and they are going to go with Keaton Wagler to pair with him in their backcourt. Obviously, I do think trading down and getting a big like Ademara is also another realistic solution. But I don't know that a trade has materialized so far. And so I do think that the best pairing for Darius Garland is the larger size of Keaton Wagler. Obviously, he will have to put on a little bit of weight, but other than that, I do think him and Garland could be a better backcourt than Garland and Mitchell. That was just too small. And so I think the Clippers are going to learn from that Cavs mistake and try and pair Garland with a bigger guard, provided Wagler puts on the weight. And I do think they can do pretty well together.
All right, going to number six. I think this person's draft stock has risen a lot in like the past few weeks, and I'm gonna go with Mikel Brown Jr. Coming into like the draft combine, he was probably at that 8-9 range. But after all his pre-draft workouts and how well he performed at the NBA draft combine, I think it's a no-brainer that if Keaton Wagler goes number five, you have to take Mikel Brown number six.
And then I believe the Kings would also be really ecstatic here. They are taking Darius Acuff and they are running that card to Adam Silver, no question. I've seen a lot of mocks that go with Darius Acuff to the Nets at six. I've seen a lot of mocks that have Wagler kind of falling below this point. And so I do think Darius Acuff, if he's still here, the Kings do want him because they need someone to make their basketball exciting. And I do think he has the potential to do that.
All right, number eight, the Atlanta Hawks. This is gonna hurt me because I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, but I do think that the Atlanta Hawks go Kingston Flemings at number eight. You know, I know that everyone's been speculating that they're gonna take a big, maybe an Ademara, but more recently there's been a lot of talks going that they're gonna take one of those consensus top eight guards, and Kingston's the last of those eight, and I think just his speed, his passion for the game is gonna be something hard to pass up on, especially after he's done a pre-draft workout for them.
And Kingston has something that Trey Young does not, and that is defense. Plus, the Atlanta Hawks do need a point guard to replace CJ McCollum, who is on an expiring contract. I don't know if he's going to be brought back. So, in all regards, I do like this pickup for the Atlanta Hawks as well. Number nine, our hometown Dallas Mavericks. I would let Yunkel make the pick here, but I got odd numbers. So we will go Braden Burries.
Nice.
Excellent. Yeah, you like the pick. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, we got a nice off-ball player with Cooper Flag and Kyrie Irving. Both I feel like are going to dominate the ball. I don't know if we need another on-ball guy. That'll kind of clog it up. There's only one ball, only 24 seconds on the shot clock. And I feel like Braden Burries is good. Catch and shoot, three-point shooter, uh, good defender. And I feel like he would complement Flag and Irving more than some of the other people on the sport.
All right, number 10, pick number 10. I'm gonna go probably with. I've seen a lot of Nate Ament to the Milwaukee Bucks. I've seen that his floor, according to many people, is the 10th pick. But realistically, I think if the Bucks were trying to make a decision for the better of their franchise, they would not go Nate Ament for Nate Ament, but they would rather go for Yaxel Lendeborg because I mean he might be a little bit older, but he just has like the prototype big, like he has everything you need. I don't think age would be that big of a knockoff, especially at number 10 when you have like the do it all big. He is like the best big in this class when you think about it.
And we'll see if Giannis does get traded in these next couple days. Maybe they do go with more of the project, quote unquote, with Nate Ament and try and hopefully develop him.
Yeah.
Um, and with number 11, the Golden State Warriors, I also feel like are really happy with how this board shakes out. They need a big, they need one badly. I feel like they go with Ademara here. Let's not overthink it. Nate Ament, I do feel like could be a good project, quote unquote, type pick. But in at the end of the day, I feel like the Warriors need an impact player and they need one now. With Yaxel not being available, I do feel like Ademar is a good consolation prize.
Yeah, and I also think that, you don't have that opportunity as Golden State to take a high risk, high reward player.
Right,
If
yeah,
Nate Ament ends up flopping in the NBA, you don't have another second option. Stephen Curry is what, 38 years old.
yeah.
He's not going to be in the league much longer to lead the Golden State Warriors. So having that young big that can help, even facilitate the offense, be a do it all big like Axel Lendeborg, I think that's a really good option for the Golden State Warriors to take.
Yeah, they need an impact player and they need one now.
All right. Going to number 12, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Well, let's just select the last player on the draft because, like, I don't want them to have a good player.
Well, as much as I'd love to do that, I think you'd be happy with this pick, but I also think it's a realistic pick. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder would go with Nate Mann.
Mm,
And I think they would do this because, they have that opportunity that the Golden State Warriors don't. Even if Nate Mann doesn't meet his full potential, they still have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, they have Chet Holmgren, they have Cason Wallace. They have all these young players that can help, you know, back up Nate Mann even if he's not doing the best. And I mean, it's just a good project because if he does reach his potential, he's gonna be so good in the NBA. So
yeah, no, for sure. And also another thing, they have just so much depth that they can just let him sit and develop and maybe, play in the G League some and hopefully that helps him hone his skills because I do want to see him succeed. He's been one of my favorite players in college. Um, and so I do think the Thunder offer a unique opportunity there. Um, Number 13 with the Heat is a tricky spot. There is a good chance that this pick is with the Bucks and that Giannis is traded. I don't know if that's gonna happen. We're gonna have to see how it all plays out. With the 13th pick, this is kind of tough, kind of tough zone. Um, but with there being no Jimmy Butler, Norman Powell is a free agent. The Heat could kind of use like an impact player right now, and so I feel like that takes Jaden Quaintance and Kareem Lopez out of the equation. And so I feel like it's more between Labaron Philon and Hans Stieback. Um, so with that, I will go with Philon, just because I like him more as a player. But I could see it being Steinbach, and I could see them liking Steinbach more and adding another big. Um, so what do you think about that, Yankel?
I mean, I think that's really good. Like overall, I think LeBron Fallon is probably the best player available at the 13th pick with how the board shaked out. But you know, they could. I've been seeing Morris Johnson Jr. rise rapidly.
Mm,
I've seen
mm-hmm.
Cameron Carr rise rapidly. And maybe they want to take the swing at Jaden Quaintance, but that
Yeah,
might be
maybe.
less likely. But I think this is a good pick. If I were the Miami Heat's general manager, I would definitely take this pick. So
And again, if they are trying to get Giannis, maybe they draft a project player and reroute him to Milwaukee. So maybe that is Jaden Quaintance
mhm,
or Cam Carr. So we'll just have to see what happens there.
yeah. And going to pick number 14, think about this for a second because
Mhm.
you look at it, they have really good guards, right? They have LaMelo Ball, maybe. I mean, they have Brandon Miller, they have Cameron, or not
Pon Knipple
Con Knipple. Yeah. So
almost won Rookie of the Year.
yeah, almost.
Um,
So
Obviously
I
after
think
that
they
Kobe
might
Bryant
be
though.
looking at someone in the front court to pair with Ryan Kalkbrenner, you know.
That's
So
good because we got a lot of
yeah,
guys here.
and I think I see that in Morris Johnson Jr.
Mm, I do
So
like him. I do like him.
I mean, he's a do-it-all big, you know, just like Audemars and Axel Landeborg. I think he's gonna fit in like a glove.
We got pick number 15 with the Bulls. They drafted Caleb Wilson at pick 4 earlier, and now they are back on the clock. With them drafting Caleb Wilson, with them having Matas, with them having Noah Sengwe, they could use more of a true center type, but I don't know if I really see that. I don't know if Steinbeck is like that. And then Jane Quaintance is kind of a big project, and I don't know if he can handle that center type workload. Feel free to let us know in the comments, though. A bunch of you may disagree with those takes. But with all of that being said, I feel like they go Cameron Carr here. Um,
I think I completely agree with that. I think he's honestly the best player on the board.
yeah,
You
that
know,
that was my biggest reasoning with the
and
pick.
looking at this like thing over here, I don't think it tells the full story. I don't think Hans Steinbach is number 14. I don't think he should be anywhere close to number 14. I think he'd probably be better off somewhere at 19 or 20. But you
Hmm.
know, you look at like genuine skill, and I see Cameron Carr, you know, he might not be like the best fit, or he might be, you know, you never know, but he does have the best talent out of all the prospects remaining on the board. So I think it's a no-brainer when you look at it like that.
And I've seen, like, obviously the Bulls traded for every guard in existence at the trade deadline. But how many of those people are you actually excited about? You know, Anthony Simon's contract expired. Rob Dillingham is kind of up in flames. I really liked Rob Dillingham, but he's just not a good ball player at this moment in time. So, I mean, who are you really excited about in that guard position, other than Josh Giddey? And I feel like Cameron Carr is a good two guard that can step in, maybe make a nice impact as the Bulls rebuild. I don't expect them to be good.
All right. Going to pick number 16, the Memphis Grizzlies. I think, you know, with all the prospects, the player that I'm about to select, they should have probably been off the board maybe 3, 4 picks ago, you know, but I'm gonna go with Kareem Lopez. He just seems like a lock to go in the lottery in the actual draft, although I might not totally agree with it. You know,
Yeah, that's
he
true.
he
Yeah.
should go above probably Nate Ament, maybe even like LeBron Phylon in the draft. I think he's a great prospect. You know, he's coming in from where did he play?
New Zealand.
Yeah, he played at New Zealand, you know, so he wasn't in college basketball this year for in the US, but
Playing with grown men, though.
yeah, exactly, you know, and that's
Right.
something you'll see with Mika Murray next year. And that helps really develop a player, you know, to play with NBA competition, to play with grown men. It's completely different than playing with college basketball players. So
We've seen that with Luca, too.
yeah, of course. And they thrive. So I think he's gonna thrive in the NBA. And I mean, just something to think about here. The Bulls and the Grizzlies, they have great positions in this NBA draft. The Grizzlies have picks number 3 and 16, and the Bulls have picks 4 and 15. I mean, that's just a great position to be in. Just something to
Also, an
think about.
interesting position to watch, see what they do with those picks.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a pretty exciting part of the draft. Now we have the Thunder, which is not as exciting. We have them taking Nate Ament, Toolsy type, Toolsy type forward. So I feel like with this pick, they could honestly trade out because I don't know if they have the roster spots to roster this pick. Um, and so I do feel like that is the most realistic option. Um, and so, we could look up and down the board to see what teams could possibly, try and trade a future pick for this year. It would probably be one of those teams that's already out of the lottery, or have already picked. Um, so what do you think about that, Uncle? You think they make that selection, or you think they
I
trade
think they
out?
make that selection. Either they package 12 and 17 or they make the selection for both.
Okay, so with that, honestly, I feel like they take Christian Anderson.
Wow, that's
Um,
insane.
I feel like, well, he got a first, he got the first wave of green room invites. Basically means he's a lock to go in the first round. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen his stock rise a lot through this whole pre-draft process. And I feel like I have seen Memphis select him, maybe try to replace John Morant in some mock drafts, but I feel like OKC is kind of an underrated landing spot, especially if AJ Mitchell starts or if Casey Wallace starts, they could use some guard depth. And maybe, Isaiah Joe might be gone, Aaron Wiggins might be gone as they face that financial crunch. So maybe Anderson could help, replace that void that could be left there if Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, and Aaron Wiggins are all gone.
I mean, my thoughts on this, I was personally thinking that, the Thunder might take another swing on Jaden Quaintance, what is his name? How do you say it?
Acquaintance.
Quaintance, yes.
I was
Yeah, I
gonna
was
I was
gonna
gonna
say
think that, but
he was
they
probably a lock to go in the lottery also before he
yeah.
tore his ACL. So I was thinking, they have again Chet Holmgren. Isaiah Hartenstein might not resign with them, but they have those options. They have those people to teach him, and he's one of the most dominant bigs in this class. I was thinking they might take a swing at that, but Christian Anderson, he's like a knockdown shooter. He's gonna make any three that you like ask him to take. He's gonna take any shot. He's a shooter, so I think that's a great pick
He's
for
a
them.
shooter.
But I was thinking,
Yeah, Acquaintance isn't a bad pick. I might have selected him in different circumstances. But they did draft Thomas Sorber last year at I believe, pick 15. He did tear his ACL and just before his rookie year. And so I do feel like he developed a lot. Maybe he's ready for that backup big role. That's kind of the only reason I didn't take Quaintance there. But I do feel like from here on out, Quaintance is probably a pretty good value pick. Um, because I feel like he does have that talent. So where do you want to go with this, Younkel?
all
Hornets
right,
making their second pick
pick
here.
18. The Thunder and the Hornets also have two really good draft positions, picking at 12 and 17 for the Thunder and 14 and 18 for the Hornets. I think personally, again, they just selected who they just select. Do you remember?
Hornets, Mo
Yeah.
Johnson.
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah, it's right
I
there.
was so
Yeah,
stupid.
you are stupid.
Very stupid.
I'm sorry. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so now they have two bigs. They have a whole, you know, set of guards to use, but I think they might go with a wing, maybe a forward. But looking at this, hmm, I think they go Hans Steinbeck. I think he can
Yeah.
play that 3-4. I think he's just a fit for this team that none of the other players on this board currently have.
Honestly, I was thinking more like Dalen Swain or Koa Pete.
My thing with that
Um,
is he is a guard, and you add another guard to LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, and Brandon Miller.
yeah,
The playing time is not going to be able to.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I just feel like some of those do-it-all utility type. And Swain's a taller guard. He could play the three, but I do like that Steinbach pickup. I think he could help out that team right away. Diabate, and you got Kalkbrenner. Now you got Steinbach, um, and Mo Johnson in there too. So I feel like that's a new revamped front court that could make some noise out there in the
Mhm.
East for that surprising Hornets team. Um, and both Johnson and Steinbach add good defense to that already smothering defense throughout the
Yeah.
back half of that last year.
All right.
Um,
Looking at 19.
looking at 19, Toronto Raptors, a spot that I feel like they're going to go with Alan Graves.
Alan Graves.
It kind of feels like the Carter Bryant pickup for the Spurs last year. Um, I don't know how clean it is. He did come off the bench for Santa Clara, but I do feel like he can shoot, and I feel like he could be a good pickup for that Raptors team. Emmanuel quickly, you got Brandon Miller who works more on the inside. Scotty Barnes who could maybe like point guard that offense along with quickly. And I just feel like Graves, him and his defense and shooting, I feel like that could be a good match. That just feels like a spot that I've seen him go a lot.
All right. All right. All right. Looking at pick number 20, the San Antonio Spurs. I think what they need now more than ever is a big that's going to back up Victor Wembanyama. And, Jaden Quaintance is a 6'10 forward. Chris Senak Jr. is not that much bigger, 6'11 forward. I mean, it's kind of a toss up between those two if it comes down to both of those players, but I think Jaden Quaintance is just more dominant.
Mm.
than Chris Senak Jr., and I'm gonna go him at number 20.
Obviously, questions surrounding acquaintance with that torn ACL. Only played 4 games at Kentucky, missed March Madness. But I do feel like the talent is there, for sure.
For sure, yeah.
And he could be one of the best bigs in this draft, if
And
not the
he's
best big.
probably another like
Um,
what if or
yes,
what
yeah,
could happen.
we're gonna have to
You
see
have to
what
take a
goes
risk.
on with him. Yeah. Um, I was thinking him. I was thinking maybe possibly Senak, and I was also thinking um Isaiah Evans. I really like Isaiah Evans coming out of Duke. I'm a Duke fan, so
Yeah,
you
same with me.
know,
Same with me. Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag.
maybe some bias, but I do like the prospect of Isaiah Evans. I do like that fit there. Um, Now the Pistons,
All right.
they need a ball handler next to Cade. That was the biggest thing. Maybe they need a big if they're gonna let Duran walk, but I don't know that you can base that contract off of that bad playoffs run. I do foresee them re-signing him at a pretty hefty price. And so having said all of that, I feel like maybe they go Bennett Sturts here and try and find, a two guard next to Cade, maybe a backup point guard, just someone who you can trust with the ball in those key moments, or in any moment, just so that teams aren't attacking Cade all the time. And so you have offense outside of Cade that can be generated. And maybe Sturts can be that guy. I don't really know, but we're gonna
Yeah,
have to
and
see.
I also think he's the most talented player that was left, in for the last 10 picks.
Yeah,
I think Dalian Swain also has a lot of talent, but I think Bennett Sturts, you look at him when you look at his big moments, he's playing in the Elite Eight, those moments, he balls out during those moments when it matters most. So I think having a player that can really back up Cade and, be like the two guard next to him, it's really important. So I think it's a great pick for the Pistons.
shout out Danish Jenkins though. Shout out Danish Jenkins.
All right, now for the 22nd pick in the NBA draft, Philadelphia Sixers 70. What is the Philadelphia 76ers select Ibuka Akori? I think he has more talent than Dalian Swain. I think that it would have gone down to those two. I think Chris Sadak Jr. is just not what the 76ers need.
Hmm.
I think he's just the best player, and I think that's what a lot of people in this draft are going to do. At the end of the day, I don't think it's always going to be about fit. This draft class is so loaded that you kind of just have to go for talent, and I think Ibuka Okori is more talented than Dalian Swain.
I pick number 23. We got the Atlanta Hawks again. They took Kingston Flemings at pick number 8. Um, I guess they could use some wings. They have Jalen Johnson. mm, They have Zachary Rizache, who no one's excited about. Um, and I guess Dyson Daniels, if you want to call him a wing. Um, I think on guards they're good. Again, they just drafted Kingston Flemings. If you want to call Dyson Daniels a guard, and then they have most improved player Nikhil Alexander Walker. Um, and so at that, I feel like they could take a center. Obviously they have Onyeka Okongwu, but I don't really know who they would trust as the backup center. And I feel like Chris Sinek Jr. would be the pick here.
Yeah.
Um, I know Jalen Swain is kind of falling a bit, I guess. But I feel like Chris Sinek Jr. is a really good big for the Hawks to snag. I guess he could be that John Collins type, although he's not as explosive or athletic. He could be that kind of rim running big. And maybe he won't, facilitate the whole offense, but I feel like, he can catch lobs and then he can defend the interior quite well. I feel like that's a good pick for them, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
improving on the margins, I guess, more so. I feel like they're ready to compete right now.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is one of those picks where it's choose based off of fit, which player is going to benefit you the most. You don't need necessarily the most talented player.
They could take Malik Thomas, but why would they?
Yeah,
You know, that's where my head was at with that.
and with pick number 24, the 2026 NBA champions, they're going to select the player that fell a lot in the draft. Dalian Swain
Mm.
is going to be my pick. And I think, you have players 1 through 5 that are doing great. You have, Jalen Brunson at the one. You have Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Carl Anthony Towns. Those 5 players at all different positions, they're doing great. They're the starters for this team. You add, Dalian Swain, another guard that can help back up. with Miles McBride and Landry Shamet, those players, this can be another piece to that. He's 6'8". He can probably play the small forward.
Yeah,
He's versatile. He can play different positions, and I think
versatile. Yeah.
it's a great pick for them to have, and for him to be available at this point is just great for them.
This is a good value pick for them too, especially in light of owner James Dolan's recent comments saying we're not going into the second apron, at all costs, we're not going to be doing that.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like this is a good value pick. I feel like they could get a big return on their investment with Swain. Um, he's one of my more favorite players going into this draft. So I feel like this is a huge, huge pickup for the defending champs. So shout out to him. Knicks fans won't celebrate this as much as they did the title, though. Yeah, but shout out to him. I guess they're coming up recently so far. So yeah, I really like this pick for the Knicks. Um, Pick 25 with the Los Angeles Lakers. Recently, an ESPN article came out saying that Luca, really the one thing Luca's begged the Lakers for is, quote, a top end center, A-list center. I don't see one in this draft. Right now, um, I don't see Henry V. Sar being that. I don't see Terrace Reed being that. So I don't think they go with one of those guys. I don't know if I don't think they're going to reach just because Lucas said he wants a center. He wants a good center. Even if they draft Henry V. Sar, like, they're still going to try and get Walker Kessler. Um, so I feel like drafting a big really won't change their free agency plans. And so because of that, I feel like it's down to Koa Pete and Isaiah Evans. I don't know. I'm just kind of colder on Koa Pete. I feel like Isaiah Evans and his 3-point shooting is really big when Luca drives in the help defense. I feel like Isaiah Evans can just knock down those threes and make those NBA level shots, more so than Koa Pete. No, you're good. I just feel like Koa Pete could have benefited more from staying another year at Arizona. I know the potential for him is there, but I just feel like Isaiah Evans, and again, like I'm a Duke fan, but I just feel like Isaiah Evans is the better pickup for them with his shooting.
All right. So for pick 26, I think you have Nikola Jokic, arguably the best player in the world. You have Jamal Murray, so you have a point guard and a center. You want someone that can fill, maybe 2 through 4, and I see that potentially in Malik Thomas. He's a 6'5" guard. He can play the 2, he can play the 3, and if you want to go small ball, he can play the 4 probably. He doesn't have the frame necessarily, but he definitely has the raw talent for it. And he has, yeah, I mean that's just basically it. He's probably the player you would take if you want a versatile guard that can do it all while Jamal Murray might be off the floor, right? You need someone
Mm-hmm.
else that can
You need someone
facilitate.
else, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why they probably go Malik Thomas here if he's available.
Especially Christian Brown's looking like a bad contract. Cam
Yep, yep.
Johnson's looking like a bad contract. Aaron Gordon's not a bad contract, but he's just been more and more injured as his career's gone
And it's
on.
also uncertain if
Um,
Christian Brown stays on
Yeah, it's
the
uncertain if
Nuggets.
any of those guys stay on the
So
Nuggets.
you need
Huge
someone.
financial
Yeah.
crunch. Also, you may lose Peyton Watson, huge two-way player. So I feel like they draft for talent in the wing area. Um, Boston Celtics also need a big, but again, I just don't see a big here for the taking, you know? Um, and so I feel like they could go with Koa Pete, but they have Jalen Brown for now, and they have Jason Tatum. I feel like Koa Pete is kind of similar to those players, kind of fits the same mold as those players. So his slide is unfortunately gonna have to continue a little bit further. And I have them going with Sergio De La
That's
Reyes.
my pick too. That's who I would have
Kind
selected.
of kind of a similar build too. I've seen comparisons to Hugo Gonzalez, first round pick last year, for the same Boston Celtics.
Hmm.
And I feel like both of them can make an immediate impact.
Yeah.
I feel like Gonzalez was a better shooter than De La Reyes coming out into this pre-draft process. But I feel like De La Reyes has better ball handling skills, and maybe a tad bit quicker.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why, Gonzalez is listed as a 6'4" wing and De La Reyes is listed as a 6'6" guard. So I feel like the fit's there, especially with Peyton Pritchard gonna need an extension. Maybe they don't give him that extension. And maybe De La Rey is just gonna have to step in there.
Yeah, I love that thinking about it. But all right, I mean, yeah, I would agree with that pick entirely. He's probably the best guard available at this point in the draft. You need a guard at this point for the Boston Celtics because you have Jalen Brown. Even if you move him, you're probably gonna go get Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is another
Both, yeah, another
yeah
forward,
another forward,
both
and
forwards,
you have
both
Jason
forwards.
Tatum. You know you have um Neemias Quinta, right?
Nume Esqueda, yeah,
Queta, yeah,
yeah,
whatever.
my goat, Nume Esqueda,
You love him,
yeah.
but he's also pretty good. He's a good big. So I don't think you need another one of those, and that's why you go Sergio De La Rey.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, I do believe they need a big. Nikola Vucevic wasn't good enough. Nemeas Keta, for as good as he improved this season, he did get burned by a healthy Joel Embiid in that playoffs. But I don't see them taking Henry Visar. I don't see them taking Terrace Reed. Like both of those players are good, but like they're not gonna fix that big problem. Once again, if the Celtics take Visar, they're still gonna try and get another big in free agency or via trade. So I just feel like drafting those guys wouldn't change their plans, and so that's why I just don't see as high of a value in drafting them, and that's why I went De La Rey there.
Yeah, all right. Pick 28, the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is definitely between the three players on this board, 23, 27, and 28.
Mm,
And just thinking about the roster, you have, Anthony Edwards, you have Julius Randle, you have
dubious handle,
I said Julius Randle.
dubious handle.
Dubious Handle. They got Dubious Handle, they got Jaden McDaniels, and
We got Jaden McDaniels.
so I'm looking at a guard here, but I don't think
I've seen
you're not
a
gonna go all the way down to Conwell here when you have all of this over here. I think you have to go between one of these.
I've seen a bunch of Ibuka or Corey to them.
Yeah,
Obviously
but
he's gone.
he's gone.
Obviously he's
I think
gone.
he's really really talented.
But I feel like if he was still here in
They
Minnesota,
would
we'd
definitely go
snap
there.
him up for sure.
But
Um,
I think if they might move on from Julius Randle very soon, and
hmm
I think Koa Pete's just too much of a what if. I think they wouldn't take that risk. They need someone that can
They
help
need
Anthony,
someone, yeah,
and I
they're a
think they go
contender right now.
Joshua Jefferson. He's very
Mm,
talented.
I really
I
like
just think
him,
that's
yeah.
a pick, plain and simple. I don't think there's too much thought that goes into that.
Yeah.
That's who they select with the 28th overall selection. If this is how the board goes,
I really like that pick, I'm not even gonna lie. Especially with a Corey not being on the board. Um, I feel like they could take Koa Pete just because, relative to draft position or relative to where he is on big boards, but I really like the Jefferson pick. Another big bodied wing, especially if they're gonna move on from Julius Randle. For someone else that's to be determined. I don't know what all is gonna happen there. So I do really like that Joshua Jefferson pick, and coming later into that college basketball season, he was one of my favorite players to watch. Number 29, we got the Cavs. This is a difficult pick. I'm not gonna lie, this is a difficult pick. James Harden is staying there for sure. Uh, you still got Donovan Mitchell. Um, and you got Jared Allen. You got Evan Mobley. So they could take Koa Pete. That might be where I go. That might be where they go if he's still here. But honestly, I feel like it's between Zuby and Alex Caravan. Um, and honestly, I just feel like they take Alex Caravan and his shooting. With the three. I feel like he also is a, okay off ball defender. He's not really gonna get hunted in those big time situations, especially with James Harden on the team. But so I also feel like that's a good pick for them. Taking his shooting beyond the 3-point line, I feel like would be
yeah,
a good decision for them.
I think that's a good pick. Personally, I probably would have taken Henry Visar. I think
Mm,
if you take Henry Visar, he's a 7 footer. He's gonna be good in the NBA, but I think that also gives you the flexibility to maybe move off of Jared Allen, maybe get some
mm,
future draft capital, maybe
yeah.
get another win now player. But I also like the Alex Caravan pick. I think everything that Mush said is valid. So
Smush.
okay, bro.
Don't be messing up my name, Yunkle.
All right, Smush. Anyways, for pick 30, my team again.
Yeah.
If I'm
Hey,
here,
we each got a Mavericks pick, so
yeah,
that's fine.
it's
Honestly,
fair.
that's fine. I would have given you the pick 9, honestly, but we each got a Mavs pick.
Yeah. And pick 30. I mean, if
Oh,
I'm here,
and you liked my Mavs pick anyway, so
I did like your math pick. Pick 30 is all bigs, and you have, I mean, you have Henry V. Kobe Pete, Terrence Reed Jr., Zuby Ejiofor. I would probably look at it, and I'd say I'm gonna take a swing on Kobe Pete. He was really
yeah.
high, like in on big boards at the beginning of the year, but I mean, yeah, that's it's just like a high risk, high reward player, and we have the opportunity to do that because we have Cooper Flag. If he maybe doesn't do as good as he like, should be doing in the NBA, we have a fallback in Cooper Flag that's still gonna make the Dallas Mavericks as dominant as they were with or without Kobe Pete, and that's why I think they take a swing at him.
I do feel like the Mavs are in one of those rare situations where it's like you're at the end of the first round, but you're not necessarily a contending team. Um, and I feel like Pete just has the too much talent to pass up on. Um, if he does slide past the Mavs, you see these group of second round teams here, Grizzlies, Nets, Kings, maybe even the Knicks at pick 31. I feel like they could all take him as a, one of the best second rounders. And he would still have a path to being a, rotation player that way. But I really like that pick of, Toolsy Pete. He could play maybe next to Cooper Flag in the future. Um, and with them drafting Burries earlier, between Burries, Cooper Flag, Pete if he hits, Derek Lively still relatively young. There's a bright future there for the Mavs, you know?